Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are back in War Thunder, and I'm looking at another map. This is Berlin. Now, Berlin has had some pretty significant changes to it, and I'm also going to try and do a new system. So the new system is, on the left side, I will show you in the game how this all works, and on the right side, I'll show you how it works on the map, so you can kind of get a feel of what parts of the map that you're going to go in. That is the idea behind this new system. But anyway, Berlin has had a lot of changes to it, and I think they are justified. When Berlin came out, it was one of the first real city maps that we'd seen, and I think it had a lot of issues with it. I still think it has a lot of issues to it, basically because of certain areas of the map which make it very hard to move, and these issues are near both of the spawn points. So in this video we are going to start off from the south spawn point, and we're going to move upwards to the enemy. In the next video we'll be doing it from the northern spawn point. This is basically based on the idea that you're on a general domination map. A lot of the ideas that I talk about will also be applicable to different game modes. So when Berlin was first introduced, it had this weird haze on it, which basically was designed so people couldn't shoot across the map, because there were certain areas, including the top right corner of the map, which basically you could sit and shoot most or the majority of the rest of the map, and this haze was designed to stop that from happening. When they got rid of that, and added in some more hills and stuff like that, it made the map slightly better, but there are still issues with it. On a general map in War Thunder, I would say you have maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get to a position which can be defended upon or you can be aggressive in, but unfortunately Berlin, this is much more limited to maybe 1 or 2 minutes, which is a big issue. So that means once we spawn in, we have to be incredibly proactive to get into these positions. We have to be aggressive, and a defensive playstyle doesn't really work on this map. So let's get started. We have 3 main key concepts to cover. The first one is moving to the center of the map, or around the domination zone B that you see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ballpoint pen, and I'm going to let's just use yellow. So yellow will be the color to show where you go and what you do. The white color, which will be a much more finer color, will be showing where certain obstacles and stuff like that will be, and the red color will be where the enemies might be and what to look out for. That is the basic idea that we're working on. Hopefully this will be the same idea for all of the videos, but I can't guarantee it. If it changes, I'll let you know. But anyway, let's move on to the center point. So from where you spawn on the south side of the map, you drive straight, take this road slightly to the right, clip the houses, hit the road, which is just next to the river, and you dart straight into the river. Now this will generally take you about 30 seconds. The issue on this map, the major issue, is this area up here. Now at higher tiers you will see this much more often, but at lower tiers you'll see it too. Up there will be heavy tanks, medium tanks, or tank destroyers of players who don't want to play the objective, and what they want to do is try and kill you, which is obviously something which is, allowed to do. It's a good way of winning the battle. So what we have to do at the start of the map is be incredibly aggressive and dip down into the water. What this means is you have an area of maybe around 5 seconds where you are going to be open. But because you're only about 25 seconds into the battle, depending on obviously what machine you're using, you can get there without the enemy attacking you or anything like that. They will not be in that top position up there. So once you hit the river, you go straight down the river, under the bridges if you can fit. Remember that these bridges have they're not exactly high. The majority of tanks can get under them. There are specific tanks which can't, such as the Gift LVT that the Russians get with the 57mm, but if you have an especially high tank, you may not be able to fit down here. I'm pretty sure something like a T-29 is not able to fit down here, but, you know, don't quote me on it. Once you reach B, there is a T-34 strategically placed on B, and what you want to do is sit behind it. By sitting behind it, you should be able to cap the zone of B while also using it as cover. If you have a slightly higher profile tank, such as a Tiger, Tiger 2, something like that, you want to look over the left side of the T-34. This will completely cover your upper glacis and your lower glacis, and it will only leave your turret to be able to be seen by the enemies who will be located here, which are the ones who are trying to push into B. You will get to B before they get to here, because they have to take either this route, or they have to take this route, which encompasses heavier water, and it is harder to do, instead of just going in a straight line. But understand that there will be enemies there. Now, because only your turret is exposed, generally your turret has the most armor on it. You are now in a hull down position. Now let's say you're in a tank, such as a T-44. What do you do in a very low profile tank in this position? Well, instead of looking over the left side of that T-34, you look over the right side. If you're looking over the right side of the T-34, you won't be on B though, so you have to be able to cap B before you get to this point. The easiest way to cap B and the most efficient without getting shot is to sit yourself slap bang behind this T-34, because generally the enemy won't be able to hit you. So, after doing this, with a low profile tank, you actually peek on the right side of the T-34. The T-34 that is sat there, the physical model is absolutely wonderful. It is perfect, picture perfect, pixel perfect to where it's damage, where you can actually hit it compared to where the model is. There are some sketchy rocks in game and stuff like that, but the T-34 in this situation is modeled perfectly. So you can actually, if you want to, shoot between the little gap, which is between the gun, the horizontal turret drive, and the upper glacis. So you have a little diagonal that you can stick your gun in there, and you can actually shoot all of the enemies which are trying to push through the river. One of the key things also about the river is that it takes away this whole area of the map. Now, the enemy team will be pushing through this area trying to get to A, because why wouldn't they? It makes sense, try to capture it. But by being in the river, you are fighting a single fight instead of having to worry about your flanks, because you're at a lower altitude. You are technically at, suppose you may call it sea level, since it's on the same thing as the river which is going around, the same altitude. But you are definitely lower in the ground. You have hills to either side. Now this means that you can get flanked, so therefore you have to pay attention to your map to see what the enemy is doing. But your first priority is making sure that that area where I've marked the little red dot is clear. Once that is clear, you do not leave the river. If you want to leave the river, the only place that you should go, if I get rid of all of this, just so you can see what's going on, the only place that I'm allowing you to go is up this little crevice here. If you are able, or if you have gun depression, if you go up this little crevice, then you will be able to see all over A, and you will be able to destroy tanks which are here, tanks which are moving in, and also the tanks which are here, which are using this area as cover behind the buildings, trying to shoot into your base. Now this is only if you have good gun depression. If that is not the case, you have to push up slightly further to this area, where it is slightly shallower, and you will be able to get shots on the same people, but it is slightly more aggressive. While you are pushing to these points, what you have to watch out for is this area. There is generally always a tank which is sat in this area up here. It is something that it's the only place where the enemy can shoot you. Generally, if people are in transit on the enemy team over here, they are able to shoot you, But the main goal, while you're moving up this little hill, because obviously you're going to be going pretty slow, is to watch that area for a tank. Now let's say you have taken A as a team, and you want to go somewhere else. So instead of focusing on going on the left side, the easiest route is to follow where the enemy tanks came from. Now that is a bit of a wonky line. So let's say you've taken B and taken A, secured it, but they've taken C. So you move along the river, making sure to keep to the left side, and then go up the little embankment where the enemies come out from. Now while you are moving up this embankment, they've actually made it easier for you to do over a year or so. But you still need gun depression if you're going to be able to attack targets around that area. So you do have to watch out for that. The main areas you're going to look at is here, in this little red segment. It is always better to look to the right. If you look to the left, generally there may be a tank there, but on the right side there is always going to be a tank which is battling in that area that you have to look at. Once again, this is all down to gun depression. If you have gun depression, you can shoot that tank, you can go back into the hole, and then you can stay there. If you don't have gun depression, you're going to have to force yourself out of the hole, get onto the road, and attack them. Now this place where you're sat is very near the enemy spawn. So you do have to watch out for that. You do have to understand that the enemy spawn is just right there. So if there is a bunch of tanks who have just died and you know that they're going to come back, then maybe it's not the best position to go to. Maybe a better position is to the right, so you can shoot any tanks trying to attack A. While you are using this method, do not worry about C at all. It's very hard for the people from C to be able to attack you anywhere along this stretch that I've shown you. So that is the first place where I would say you should go. That is the safest, and that is the best when it comes to being able to cover yourself using the T-34, getting into the river, shielding yourself from A and C, and being able to force one-on-one or one-on-two or two-on-one engagements while you move and capture a point as well. So it's all obviously based around the objective. The other two, it is not based around the objective. It is based around killing players. Now this is generally why I don't like this map. I prefer objective-based gameplay, but sometimes what you do have to do is try and take out a flank and go into the enemy spawn, and hopefully you can take everything out. So we're going to focus on the right side of the map now. This is the route you should take. Once again, taking the slight dirt road, but instead of going straight and left into the water, you follow the Charlottenburger Chaussee, I think it is, but basically the road which leads you through the gates. The great thing about this position and following the road is that even though it takes a bit more time than getting into the water, the tank destroyers, which are going to be positioned here, have a tough time. And the reason for this is because Gaijin, a few patches ago, put a nice little hill here. So once you get to this position, you should be able to cover yourself while you move to the gate. So that's quite nice of them. Thank you for that. Before, that was very shallow and people could shoot you all the way down the road, making it an impossible thing to do. So once you are past the gate, you take a left and go into the houses. The enemy is going to be nowhere near this point at this time. If the closest the enemy is going to be is pushing down these roads at this time that I'm talking about now. So you don't have to worry about the enemies being around the houses where you're going to be. Now you move up through this little road through the houses, and then you have a choice. You can either take a left and go straight to A, use the houses as cover, or you can go straight. What you don't want to do is take a left and then take a right to go behind the Reichstag. The reason for this is you are useless behind this Reichstag if you're in this position. You can't get effective fire on the tanks which are going to be sat in that red splodge if you are behind the Reichstag. It's nearly impossible to do without them shooting you, and generally the people who sit back there have pretty big guns. so you've got to watch out for that. If you're going to take the A route and go left onto the road, know that you are covered for the majority of it. You don't have to worry about people attacking you from C. It's just not going to happen. They're going to be focused on their fight, and generally it's very hard to actually get shots at C from this position unless we're talking about later on into the game. So attacking A, you focus completely on A. We're actually just going to make this a little bit shorter. What you should do first is sit right next to the Reichstag, right at the tip of it, use your camera button and look around the side. If the enemy has not pushed up after A, or, you know, they haven't taken A and then pushed up, what you should do then, instead of waiting here for the enemy to push into you, is be aggressive in this little spot. A lot of enemies are going to use the houses around around the Reichstag as cover. It's an unfortunate thing that they're going to do. You can generally shoot through a lot of the windows of the Reichstag right into the enemy spawn from there. So it is your job to be aggressive and root them out. If you take this path, generally people won't realize you're there, because what they're doing is they're focusing on this square right here. They're looking straight forward, they're not looking from the right. So you push in aggressively, put yourself next to these two buildings, use the bricks and mortar to try and dodge shots from the enemy which are going to be around there, get yourself hulled down. If you're in a larger tank, you may have a few issues with this, but in a lower profile tank, use the bricks as cover, as I said, kill everything on A, and take A, and then stay behind those houses. Make sure the guys at the back of the map over here cannot shoot you. That is something that you're going to have to do quite a lot when it comes to this. Focus on this area here. But anyway, you've taken A, and that's great. So, but then you're kind of stuck there for the foreseeable future. There's nowhere else you can go from there. So if you take this road, just understand that. If you're going to take this road as well, I think it's probably the best option to take if you have a squad, so you can push onto A effectively, trying to take out the first batch of enemies. But if you are alone, I would advise going straight. Now if you go straight, you end up that you eventually just run out of houses, which makes sense, and I mean, a little cul-de-sac has to end somewhere, and what you're greeted with is a piece of rubble on the left side of a house, which you can actually use to get hulled down in, looking at the TDs, which are, or heavy tanks or medium tanks, whatever, which are around these houses at the back of the map. So I'll just redraw them so you know what I'm talking about. These areas, these little open areas, plus the areas which are sat there between, between the areas and also the areas which are in the houses themselves, because there's a lot of windows there that you can actually shoot through. There's been many a time where I've been shot through a Yag Tiger through a very small window because he's sat behind there and there's no way I can counterfire. So when you're sat in this position, it is generally beneficial if you have a tank which has decent turret armor. The reason for this is because you're going to use that rubble in front of you to cover your hull, and therefore they're going to shoot you in the turret. You can also angle yourself very effectively in that area, and you should definitely do it. It's going to take a long time to root out the guys in red over here. Now, once they're rooted out, and if they're not rooted out, unfortunately, your journey stops here. You would either have to retreat, double back and try and take A, or hopefully try and get your team to push up into them and then you can eventually take them out. But that's going to be a long, prolonged battle. But once they're taken out, let's say they are taken out, then you have to slightly poke out and cover this area. I'm just going to erase it so you know where I'm talking about. You have to cover this area here. As I said in the other place, if you move through B, there is going to be at least one tank in this area. You have to take it out before moving forward. This whole area here has to be clear before you can move forward from this position, which is going to be a task. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, but if you're able to do it, then at least you'll feel good. Once this area is taken out, then from this position, you hit the road near the river, you follow the road, a bit squiggly, and basically just go into their spawn and kill them all as they come out. If you don't want to do that, you can move in between the houses or behind the houses, wait for people to come out. But I would say at the current time in this game, just go into the spawn and kill everything. The reason why I use the road instead of the dirt tracks is, first of all, the road is much more hard terrain, so what's going to happen is that you're going to be quicker into the spawn, and that means there is less time for a tank to spawn in and then come into this area here and once again kill you. While you are moving all the way around here, you have to make sure that the red area I've indicated is clear. But that's how you would do the right side of the map. So let's move on to the left side of the map, which is probably the most interesting in my opinion. The safest is the B route. The hardest is the way to the right, just because of that line of tank destroyers, but on the left side you generally don't have to worry about that. So let's get into it. The left side, you take this dirt road here, follow it around, and once you get to this position, you have to look right, because once again, this whole area here of the enemy's area, so generally this, this, and all of this will be able to shoot at you through a very flimsy wall which they can kill. There may also be some tanks which you push down here which can kill you as well. So you have to, at this point in time, look right. You have to make sure what is going on. That means that you can stop if you feel like it, but if I were you, I wouldn't. When you get to this point, you take a slight left and you sit behind these houses over here. That's a bit long, so we'll just get rid of it. Let's try again. And then you sit behind these houses here. Now, the reason for this is, from my point of view, it is a hell of a lot easier to get to C from the top spawn than it is from the south. Now, this can be debated and disputed, and that's completely fine. Everybody has their, own opinions about it. But even, as a playstyle thing, I prefer the counterattack. I prefer defending, killing the units, and then moving forward through the wasteland of their bodies. So from this position behind the house, you are able to shoot through some of the windows of the blown out house and shoot the enemies, which will try and be aggressive on you, and you have decent cover from everything that can attack you. The area that you have to worry about is sometimes there is some sly TDs who push around here, and you have to watch out for them. Sometimes, instead of that, they just push down this road, but generally you should be looking down that road anyway for aggressive people. So the one to worry about, if I can do this, is the guys who are flanking around here. So once you've done that, once you've got to this position and you're confident that there's not too much stuff on C, if you are fully confident, then you should definitely move on C, simple as that. But if you're not, you do have to expose yourself and push the road which I just showed you. Go up here, and then up, and then around. Simple as, really. Now, the 2 points of contention, where they're going to be probably fights, or at least you should be looking for fights, is around this corner, and also down here. Now, the reason for that is because once you whiz around this corner, generally there's going to be at least one guy who's been sat there the whole map waiting for people to move on to C so he can do exactly what you just did. So you do have to watch out for that in this part of the road here. The reason for the engagement here is there may be somebody on this side of the road, or there may be somebody coming down this side of the road. So you have to make sure that you are clear both ways. Otherwise you will get caught out while you're trying to push into the enemy spawn. And that's another reason why I don't like Berlin. The most efficient way of doing it is, instead of going for the points, is pushing into the spawn. Or at least in my opinion. But that is the most interesting track you can take when it comes to this map. And there are some points where you can hold. Getting hull down is a lot harder to do, just because of the fact that, there isn't much rubble or anything. There are some houses you can hide behind, but generally it's not great. The reason why I take such an outward look on this, though, and move so far out, is to make sure oops, sorry, that the guys over here cannot attack you at all. That is the reason. The majority of tanks on the northern side are going to push through to A. Some of them will go to B, and some of them will go to C, but the majority will either be sat around this area that I've just indicated, or they'll be pushing to A. So by taking this route around the left side, it is the safest but fastest at the same time route to be able to get to the enemy spawn and be able to spawn camp them and kill them. That's basically it. So if you liked this way of doing things, then please let me know. If you preferred the old way, then I will make them the old way instead. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been informational. Have a nice day.